With these records, they're more like your favorite outfit. So if you can take apart your favorite outfit and say this is my favorite t-shirt, but just somehow it just envelops you, it takes you and covers you and protects you, gives you strength. Hey, I'm Gavin from Bush. I'm at Kensaltown East, working with Consequence for their crate digging series, where I get to choose a bunch of records that were important to me, are important to me, of British bands. Kicking it off, because of British bands, I had to start with Public Image. So of course that is Johnny Lydon after he left the Sex Pistols. So it's a really seminal, important band for anyone who loved the Sex Pistols, like me. The first single I remember was Public Image, and the B-side has a thing I remember called the Cowboy Song, and it was wild, because when you play the B-side, it would start with a record being scratched, like your needle was fucked up. What was important about this record was just the extended kind of introduction of all the longer, repetitive bass cycles, all that sort of almost Glenn Branca-like, but just really extended pieces. And it kind of got away from all the sort of 3-minute pop stuff, and just was the beginning of my love affair with Public Image. I think Pop Tones is probably the track on there that is the kind of the one I would recommend, but really it's a really essential record and well worth checking out. Obviously a lot of tragedy, a lot of sadness to this, because there's Amy Winehouse. I thought that she should, as a British artist, was literally one of the most important artists we've had, and much like anyone in that terrible 27 club, you're just left with that wild feeling of what she should have done, especially with Amy, because she was so mature. Her music was just so timeless, and wasn't of any sort of fad or trend or style, you know, so therefore she could have gone on forever. And it's just so sad, because one of the greatest voices we ever had. This record, obviously, people know this record's in everyone's DNA, especially in England. Key tracks are all over it, Back to Black, but the key tracks is just this record. I've tried to choose records that really, for me, it's the whole record. It's not just like one track, really. I like the whole thing of a record, because as much as though the world goes on singles now, no one's got any time for anyone. When you do love a band, you know, you want to fall into their whole aesthetic and who they are, and you can't really get it from one song, I believe. And I think that when you play a record, it separates true artists from people with really good singles. Psychedelic Furs, well, I had to include that because and that first record, Psychedelic Furs, because it's one of the first albums I had as a kid. And it's one of those records that I know backwards, start to finish. And I don't talk about Richard Butler enough, because I think he's like one of my favorite singers. Great melodies, great words. That big song in there for me was Sister. You know, I grew up with my sister, and so having a song about a sister of mine, and all part of the scene that we're in, and the young punks and the kind of cool things that were happening in London. I have deep memories for that band, and this was before Pretty in Pink, and when they were a sort of pure punk band, even though they had the sort of the sax stuff in there. Really just an amazing band, and it's one of those brilliant records where, and it's true with all of these records, I put them on and they just take me to a better place, you know what I mean, and just transport me, and that's when music beats life, you know, and it helps you against all the struggles that we're forced to endure. So this is an incredibly big record for me. I first heard of PJ Harvey right at the beginning on Dry. And I remember seeing her at Finsbury Park. Someone shouted out, "More melody," you know, that's when she's singing, "You leave me dry." You know, she's singing that. It's fucking best female lyric ever. And some twat was telling her to sing with more melody in the crowd. He's never been heard of ever again, and she's continued to get stronger and stronger. So Rid of Me is a record that she wrote in a couple of weeks, which I heard, which was also, as a writer, really kind of like distressed me that someone could be that good in such a short amount of time. She made it with Steve Albini, and I never heard a record of a three-piece that's been more, a more in tune three-piece. Was it Robert Ellis? Just the way that the expression between the three of them, to take very raw, basic's the wrong word because it's really elevated, but there's something bass about it and raw, but it takes all three of them to make it work. the dynamics of each three members. It's not just a PJ Harvey record, it's actually the three of them. And just, I must have just played this record to death. And when I went to make 16 Stone, I remember all I wanted to do was like make every song sound more like Rid of Me. Well, I was in the studio going, how do we get it to be more like this? And I'd never done that with anyone, but I did it with her. What I liked about it is that when she wants to get heavy and sort of aggressive, it's more aggressive than anyone. You know, she can do white chalk and she can sort of be off very poetic and lilting, but when she wants to give it, and I got my first guitar off of her because she played a jazz master at that show where she was shouted at from the crowd, the jazz master, and I hadn't seen that, and I was like, super cool guitar. So when I got a record deal, I went to this store called Vintage and Rare in London, and in the window they had a jazz master, same as Polly was playing, and so I was like, oh my God, I'm one step closer. It's just, you know, of 1,000 steps, maybe I'm a step closer if I get the same guitar. And I tried every guitar in the store because I had the money on me, and I'd never had the money. I used to go to that store when I didn't have any money. And I was like, oh, fuck, I just want the one on the window. And there's the famous story in my world of where that was Joe Walsh's guitar. I bought it £900, so about, you know, a grand, $1,000. And I played my whole record on it, 16 Stone, and a lot of this record I did with Steve Albini. And then years later I found out that was Joe Walsh's guitar, and he played Hotel California on it, like the rhythm guitar parts on it. So I've got this brilliant guitar that is thanks to Polly's sound. Joe used it on Hotel California and I played all of 16 Stone on it. So my kids know that the day I die, boom, next day, go sell that puppy. Every 10 years you get a Portishead record. It's just brilliant, and he's just really interesting. Great singing. Beth Orton, she's incredible. That plaintive, and I always liked the idea that I read once where she'd say, go and listen to tracks and be like, sift through songs they'd made for her to sing on, and she'd be like, no, weirder, go the weirder ones. And that's what we want. We all want weird. Everyone's weird, and not enough people admit it. So they're just a Portishead. He's a seminal band. It's of the sort of trip hop genre thing, whatever that means. You know, phrases fall over themselves, and after a few years they don't mean anything. So I don't know what that means anymore. Trip hop, but broken R&B, I don't know. But it's just super cool and just out there, and he's brilliant. It's just an amazing record, start to finish, and it's a journey. And I love this band, and they were so brilliant as a regular band. They were so brilliant as a sort of this sort of interesting, whatever you would call it now, this more electronic-based thing they do as well, so well. So it really is a top to bottom record. This is a vibe. I mean, if you talk about records being a vibe, this is a fucking vibe, top to bottom. I love his solo stuff as well. Beautiful work that he does. It just touches, and especially when you say British band, I mean, this is just so interesting, so hard to not pick it. It's well deserved on everyone's crates. He's had many important records, but that's a really important record for me. That whole orchestration side of Blackstar and the song arrangement, I mean, it's just really fascinating how he does it. And as a writer myself, it's really hard sometimes to figure out how people, because, you know, music's so incredible, because if you think about it, as I'm ironically sat as a board, it's a series of building blocks, and you start with a couple of elements and you keep adding and you keep adding, and by the end of it, the idea is that the sum of the parts are way greater than any individual thing. And I find it myself, especially when I'm recording myself and I'm recording new songs, to write new songs, whatever. You know, now with studios, you can sound like 10 people on your own, you know what I mean? It's a bit stupid. It's when you get to an end of a track, sometimes it's hard to, if someone said, oh, write a song like that, it's hard to know how you would do it, because the alchemy is sometimes out of your control. Things happen, and synchronicity of things, and the way the notes fall together and counterpoint and things like that. It's interesting how music moves, and it's just a really, well, it's a literal masterpiece, that record. He was always one for an entrance and an exit, so that was pretty extreme. And because he left so much material. Sometimes when we lose people, specifically I talked about the 27 Club, it's like Kurt, Janice, Jimmy, Amy. This is crazy. So it's really like this sort of abbreviated work output, you know what I mean? You just have to deal with Amy, who's like 2 records, you know? But with Bowie, you do get the sense that he transcends that, because it's almost he left with his Requiem. That is he is Foray's Requiem. He made, you know, people make their Requiems, he made Blackstar. So he was able to furnish us with a much larger library and catalogue of work. And in a way, it was like, Blackstar was a bit like saying, and this is the last one I'm doing. You know, as opposed to, fuck, there's this tragedy, you know, and that's the last thing they did is the great record. So with him, so that's his, and I love my Requiems, Foray's Requiem, Mozart's Requiem. They're my favorite things to play. And it's a beautiful way to kind of start a day or think about stuff or process things that are going on in your life. And Blackstar is no different. What I liked about this lot is that the performance is so strong. There's not that much guitar. The guitar is really searing, but it's not like guitar and the chords and stuff like that. It's just like so raw and powerful, and he's really political, he's really strong, he's got an amazing sense of right and wrong, which is really, really good in music, and not enough of that. You know, most of us are sort of, you know, navel-gazing, talking about like how things affect us. Do you know what I mean? So, and people do connect to that. But so anyway, Pop 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 was a song that I was listening to this record, studying it the other day. Was like, I like it because it's sort of quite experimental and quite different and quite out there and not so standard. But just an excellent band, and you know, it was fun. I didn't want to just have like best British bands and like be like, you know, from like so long ago and like there's been nothing good. You know, this is a really vital band who are now on the world stage, I think, and love them. You know, really strong as fuck. He is an English national treasure. I mean, like, that's Marquis Smith. For me, growing up, he was just what he stood for, which is like independence and creativity and application. And it's funny because I ended up, we interviewed each other for a magazine, I think Q magazine or something, back in the day, and he had a fearsome reputation as like, just took no prisoners, just like Larry and like a little bit edgy. So I went for a drink, we went to do an interview together, and we met first for a drink, and I was like, you know, do you know what I mean? Just like thinking, what's he gonna be like? Is he gonna be like Tony? He was like a super sweetheart, and we had a couple of drinks together, and he was wild. But then when the journalist showed up, he just tortured the journalist. It was brilliant. He just tortured him like a mouse with like a cat with a mouse. Just like ask a question, what have you got? Just pushed him around a bit, and it was inspiring. My favorite thing is when he said, me and Gavin have got the same problem, or have the same affliction. We're both massive in America. So Ben Sinister, Mr. Pharmacist, but you get the sense of him, and it's interesting to do them next to IDLES because he has that same delivery. It's like, not dwarfs the music, and I don't mean it's about IDLES, but just, it's almost like he's always got to say, I'm a pharmacist, and he's going to talk over, it's just this like John Cooper Clarke, just this strong Mancunian fucking, I think that he just had songs to sing, and whoever the backing band was, he was going to sing, be the four, and I did see them a lot play, and just was always just a wild figure, and just always like that crazy amount of danger in there, a lot of danger, like you didn't know what's going to happen. I'm from London. It's like a melting pot. Do you know, where I grew up, it's like Irish and blacks. That's what it was. That's the Johnny Lydon book, you know, no blacks, no Irish, on the window, you know, there's Kilburn, Swiss Cottage, West Hampstead, West London, the sound systems. So for me, like reggae music, dub, It's just massively still part of Bush. It's every bass line is a dub bass line. Every bass line. I love it, and I wish the songs, it annoys me that we do songs at like 3.5, 4 minutes, because I like long songs and cool things. Anyway, this band, brilliant, really, really cool lyrics, really cool approach, and I think that one of the best English bands I've heard of in a long time. This album is really great, this cover's great, pulled me right in on the cover. I can't recommend them enough. Oh, Rough Trade Album of the Year. All right, there you go. And if you were to buy this in your record store, as you should, this is a solid pink rose vinyl, so they're not fucking around. Well, it's another one of those records that you just let play. Yeah. It's not here, check the single out. You wanted me to do that. I did that for him. I did that for Consequence. I didn't want to do it.
That's great. That's gonna be the plug.
I did it for Consequence. I didn't want to do it.